Mike White, a 5th-round draft pick of the Dallas Cowboys a few years ago, was a practice squad player, Rob. And he steps in for the injured Zach Wilson, the number 2 pick in the draft. The Jets, future quarterback, they hope. He's their savior. They're hoping that he becomes that. But Zach Wilson, Mike White steps in against Cincinnati, Rob, and goes berserk. 37 for 45, 405 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have 2 picks, but they really weren't his fault. I mean, he played a really good game. So much so that his jersey and the game ball wound up in Canton in the Hall of Fame.
It was the best. It was the best. I don't think anybody who had ever started, Chris, their first game in the NFL had 400 yards.
Or 37 completions.
Right.
So, yeah,
it was right.
That's exactly
he had
why
set
they
a couple of marks. Right.
Right. And New York, Rob, where you and I both worked as journalists,
right,
was going crazy. Comparisons to Kurt Warner, and I'm talking about on the radio and the newspapers. Comparisons to Kurt Warner. Comparisons to Tom Brady.
Chris. My friends in New York are texting me about this guy, and I'm like, what?
It was Jeremy Lin in shoulder pads.
Yes.
That's what it was.
It was Linsanity, and it was ridiculous. And it's not, not to just totally rip Mike White and rain on his parade, but Chris, when you ask yourself why the Jets haven't won a Super Bowl since 1969 and some of the issues that the franchise has had, it's mind-boggling when you think they've had different coaches, had different general managers, right? Like, it's not the same people for the last 40 years. Right. But as an organization, they keep making the same. What? Zach Wilson was what? He got hurt. Chris, you drafted him with the 2nd pick. They put him in limbo. They were like, well, the situation is fluid and fluid?
Right.
How could that even come out of their mouth that the situation was fluid? Mike White had a great debut. He played a few plays. Remember, he got hurt in the 2nd start against the Colts.
Yeah.
And then yesterday, what happened? He was awful.
24 for 44, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, including 3 in the 3rd quarter that totally turned the game. Yeah, it was awful. And, Rob, you're right. Look, first of all, and Robert Saleh, the head coach for the Jets, should know this. I mean, he should know this better than us. Rob, these dudes are in the NFL for a reason. We see it in the NBA and we see it in Major League Baseball. Everyone in a uniform. Correct me, Rob, if you think I'm wrong or if you disagree with me. Everyone in a uniform at this level, they can play.
Right. You don't make it to the NFL.
Yes, they're capable of a big game or two. But they can't do it consistently, and that's what separates the starters and the stars from just the guys that are on the bench and on the roster.
Plain and simple.
So when you see a guy have a big game, you can't go all goo-goo and gaga over him. And again, Saleh should know that. I'm sure he knows it. And Rob, to your point, look, the game after his big game, that press conference that day, Saleh left the door open for him to eventually become the star.
Which was ridiculous right there.
And then, Rob, he had another press conference that people thought was going to clear it up the next day, and he doubled down.
Right. Right. Instead of saying, Zach Wilson is our quarterback, Mike White will play as long as until our guy's healthy or whatever. Leave it at that. Now, if he wins you 3 games, Chris, and he throws for 1,200 yards, and he has 15 touchdowns and 3 picks, then you make a decision.
It becomes evident to people at that point. It's like, well, hey, we got to stick with this guy right now, right?
Yes.
But why to do it so quickly, no.
Why would you paint yourself in the corner and the Jets? You just shake your head at them. I'm telling you, it's a bad – I grew up with that team, Chris. I told you. I wouldn't work on Sundays when I was in high school to watch Jets games. I was the biggest Jets fan going as a kid in high school. I told my boss, Shelly Zimmerman at Stride Ride, I don't work on Sundays from September through December. You hear me? Can you imagine a 16-year-old?
Is that how you told him? Or was it
not like that. It
Mr. Finkel? Or what was his name?
Shelley Zimmerman.
Mr. Zimmerman, I really like the Jets. I'm a huge Jets fan. And one day I want to be a sports reporter. Do you mind if I take Sundays off?
It was more like that. It sounded more like that.
He's like, I told Shelley Zimmerman, yo, if you want me, then I'm off on Sundays. You got to live with that. You good? We good?
Can you imagine a 16-year-old making a boss move like that, Chris? That's how much I was into
I tell you what, you'd probably be impressed.
Right.
So, you got to be impressed as the owner.
But I've watched this nonsense, and it's bad. All right. I just couldn't.
It's bad. I wanted you got it. I know you want to vent. You wrote a whole column about it on deadspin.com. Good column. I read it. Anything? The floor is yours. Maybe you're probably trash talking him tomorrow, is my guess.
No.
Or the Jets, period.
No, it's actually, I'm trash talking? All the people who thought the Nets were going to go, collapse without Kyrie. You look up now, Chris, they're 10-4. No, they have first team to 10 wins in the Eastern Conference.
Right.
I'm just saying they've won 8 of their last 9. They got a big game against the Warriors tomorrow. They played. They just keep playing. And we're
obviously not getting into a Nets conversation, but the one thing I will say is this, Rob. You're right. I mean, they look good.
I'm not saying that they would be better.
I got to get more from James Harden. Well, we know they'd be better with Kyrie, but I got to get more from Harden. I don't think they can win it if Harden's not Harden. He's playing. He's an all-star, right? 18, 8-8 or something like that. He's averaging. But I need him to be the Houston, or close to that. Give me 26 a night.
I get that.
This would be great if Kyrie's there giving you 26 a night.
But I'm just saying,
I need more without
Kyrie. They're 10-4.
But
they didn't fall off the cliff.
Legit.
Is my point. All right. So anyway, I'm going to say the last thing about the Jets is that we saw this with Jeremy Lin with the Knicks. And New York is so starving, Chris, for anything. Any kind of
that's the thing.
Winning, anything that as soon as somebody does anything now. New York wasn't always like that. It was a prove me town. It hasn't become that, Chris. Right. You know how hard it is. The media has always been tough on the teams, and now they crown anybody after a game. Boomer Esiason on the Fan was like, everybody wear white to the game. They'll have a whiteout for Mike White. Really, Boomer, after one game?
But you're right. I mean, and it's sad because it's the biggest city in the country.
Right.
But, I mean, and they are, you know that. I mean, New York is a fantastic sports town. But the teams aren't that good. It's just obviously you got the Yankees. Mets every now and then are pretty good. Giants.
But it's been bad. The Giants have been bad.
The Jets have been bad. Right. The basketball teams. I mean, Brooklyn obviously is good, but
the Knicks
nobody
bad
seems
for
to care
a long
that much
time.
about them.
Right.
Knicks have been bad. Look, they've had their little runs here and there, Rob, but it's been since 1973. I mean, my goodness. So, yeah, it was sad to see. But let's quickly go here, and we're going to throw this out to the listeners in a few minutes. Where are you at on the Buccaneers? 2 bad losses. They lost 29-19 to a middling at best Washington football team, coming off a bye, really. And then before that, they lost to the Saints in a game that Jameis Winston got hurt in. So they've been down the last few weeks. They were my pick in the NFC to get to the Super Bowl. We'll make new picks at the end of the season before the playoffs. But I am not panicking about the Buccaneers. I'm not worried. I'm not worried in the least bit about the offense. The defense gives you reason for concern. They couldn't get off the field against Washington yesterday. And but they do have 3 starters in the defensive backfield coming back. So I think it's foolish to panic about the Buccaneers. Where are you at on them?
I think the hyperbole we heard in the preseason about them running the table and they came back and they brought everybody back and they're going to be better this year. They know more about each other and have a better chemistry. I don't see that team. That's the team I don't see. And I'm not saying that they're no good or they're not going to compete. But I don't see the team from a year ago. I don't think people are afraid of the Bucs, and I thought people thought, and I'm not making it up. I mean, am I right? People were talking about they could run the table. That's how.
Well, yeah, I don't know why people were saying that, but you're
I know.
right.
They were saying,
look,
because
how many times we had 2 teams go undefeated in NFL history,
right,
and one of them won the Super Bowl. I mean, like it doesn't happen regularly.
Right. It doesn't happen. But people thought because of what happened last year, and that they were all coming back, that they would just run it back and they would do the same exact things. And Tom Brady's had his way the last couple of games. What does he have now?
He's had 5 turnovers the last 2 games.
2 games. That's
4
a lot.
interceptions and a fumble.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's had, and that's the point I was making earlier. I mean, and now we see Stafford, 2 interceptions in the first quarter. Like, a lot of these guys are having bad games, but it's the NFL. It happens, and it's always happened. But my point is this, Rob. They are doing what they did last year. At this point last year, they were 6-3. Some people might say they don't have many great wins this season. Well, they did beat Dallas, who looks really good. They did beat New England, who actually looks pretty good and has won 4 straight. But I'm just saying, but last year, at this time last year, their first 7 wins, only one of them, Rob, was against a team with a winning record.
Yeah, but they beat
Green
Bay.
Last year in November, that was it, though. And last year in November, they had been crushed by New Orleans 38-3 at home. In November, they went 2-3 and lost 3 out of 4 in one stretch. I mean, I remember having this very conversation because I picked them to reach the Super Bowl last year, and I was like, I'm not worried. I mean, it happens. You great in a great season, you lose 5 games, 11-5, 12-4. And so stretches like this happen. I'm not saying they don't have work to do. They do, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But, yeah, I mean, this is exactly where they were last year. People talking about, the bye week after that, they came back and rolled. The bye week was in week 13 for them last year.
Yeah.
It was a lot later.
And if
how's it different, though? What's different?
What's different is that they've been together now. This is a team that won a Super Bowl.
Well, they've been injured.
Yeah, I mean, injuries are part of the NFL. A lot of teams are injured, and you just got to kind of play through it. The Packers went to Arizona without three starting wide receivers. You know what I mean? They had injuries. They could have easily chalked that up as a loss, but they won that game.
No, I'm not saying it's an excuse, but it can be an explanation. I mean, and they're 6-3.
No, I'm
not crying over 6-3 if I'm a team.
Yeah, I don't feel the same about them this year. I don't know.
You didn't feel that way about them last year.
No, I didn't. Because
you actually do feel the same. You thought they were trash last year?
Last year they finished with the Falcons twice, the Lions, and some other bad team, and they won 4 or 5 games that made them go over the top. But they played some bad teams.
Okay, and
no, that's all.
They ain't play bad teams in the playoffs.
We'll see this year. I just don't feel. I don't feel this year. I don't feel that good about the Tampa Bay and all the hype that followed them after them winning the Super Bowl.
All right.